Long before medicine cabinets existed, people still got sick, still got injured, still faced infections, fevers, and wounds that needed tending. And somehow, across thousands of years, certain plants kept earning a place beside homes, in gardens, along pathways, tucked into pots near doorways in cultures that had never heard of each other. Not because people were told to trust them, because generation after generation tried them, returned to them, and passed the knowledge forward. What made these plants survive thousands of years of human experience? Different cultures, separated by oceans, by centuries, by entirely different ways of understanding the world, often arrived at the same conclusions independently. A plant valued in one corner of the ancient world quietly appeared in the traditions of another, with no connection between them, no shared texts, no trade routes carrying the knowledge across, just people everywhere, paying close attention to what grew around them, and reaching again and again for many of the same plants. That pattern is worth paying attention to, and it starts with one plant that almost every ancient civilization seemed to agree on. If there were a world map of trusted plants, garlic would sit at the center. It appears in the oldest written records of medicine from Egypt, Greece, China, and India, not as a curiosity, but as something genuinely relied upon. Soldiers carried it. Farmers grew it close to their homes. Healers prescribed it across traditions that shared nothing else in common. The smell made it impossible to ignore. The potency was obvious from the first use, and it grew almost anywhere, survived harsh conditions, and returned reliably each season. But garlic wasn't the only plant that earned that kind of universal trust. The next one didn't just sit in gardens, it followed entire armies across continents. Time followed soldiers into battle, long before anyone understood why it helped. Small enough to grow in the poorest soil, hardy enough to survive conditions that finished larger plants, and carrying a scent so distinct that once noticed, it was never forgotten. Roman soldiers carried it. Medieval communities grew it near their doors. Monastery gardens considered it essential. It became woven into daily life so completely that people stopped thinking of it as remarkable, which is perhaps the strongest endorsement any plant can receive. But thyme still wasn't the plant people trusted most. Another herb became so respected that people gave it a name meaning safety, salvation even. Imagine a medieval household forced to choose just one useful plant to keep beside the kitchen door. For many families, that plant was sage. Its Latin name carries the meaning of salvation, a name given not by botanists, but by people who had real reasons to feel that strongly. Across medieval Europe, the question wasn't whether to grow sage. It was how much and where to place it closest to the door. There's a particular quality to sage, the weight of its leaves, the way the scent clings to hands long after touching it, that feels deliberately designed to be remembered. And not far from where sage grew, another plant was doing something different. It didn't need to be touched at all. The scent alone made oregano unforgettable. In warm climates, where it grew wild across hillsides, the fragrance carried on the air without the plant being touched. People encountering it for the first time didn't forget it. Greek and Roman traditions valued it deeply, and it spread through trade and migration into territory after territory. Everywhere it arrived, it established quickly, thriving in poor, dry, rocky soil that discouraged almost everything else. Here's what's strange, though. Most plants people relied on throughout history eventually faded from daily life, replaced, forgotten, left behind as the world changed. So why did these particular plants survive? Most people today walk over plantain without recognizing it. It grows flat against the ground in paths, lawns, and roadsides. So ordinary, it becomes invisible. But for most of human history, it was anything but overlooked. It traveled with early settlers so reliably that some indigenous communities called it white man's footprint, not as a compliment, but as an observation. Wherever those settlers went, plantain appeared shortly after, carried deliberately because it was considered too useful to leave behind. A weed by any modern definition. A companion by the standards of everyone who came before. Here's the pattern. Hiding in plain sight: garlic, thyme, sage, oregano, plantain. Different continents, different cultures, completely unrelated traditions, but every single one of them shares the same quiet quality: resilient, persistent, difficult to eliminate, capable of surviving poor soil, harsh conditions, and neglect that would finish more delicate plants entirely. Almost as if nature built them specifically to survive alongside humans, to remain available, to keep returning, and to refuse to disappear even when nobody was tending them. That changes how the next two plants should be seen. Yarrow keeps appearing in historical accounts across cultures so different from each other that the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Ancient Greece, Northern Europe, indigenous traditions across North America, China, each with their own name for it, their own reasons for keeping it close. It grows in disturbed ground, along roadsides, and at the edges of fields. Exactly the places people have always moved and worked. Some plants earn trust quietly, without drama. Yarrow simply kept showing up, kept being useful, and kept being remembered. One plant on this list, though, didn't need centuries to prove itself. It only needed one encounter. One encounter with horseradish is enough to understand why people remembered it. The heat is immediate and unmistakable. Sharper, more direct, arriving before the flavor fully registers. And once established in a garden, horseradish becomes nearly permanent. The roots go deep. Small pieces left behind after harvest regrow without encouragement. A reliable, powerful, impossible to lose plant in a world where reliability was exactly what people needed most. The easiest mistake is judging a plant by how common it seems today. Many of the plants in this video became so familiar, so unremarkable, that people simply stopped noticing them. They didn't lose their value. They lost their audience. A plant growing in a garden path or spreading through an untended corner doesn't announce its history. It just grows. Quietly. The same way it always has. The knowledge didn't survive because people carefully preserved it. It survived because generation after generation kept rediscovering it, independently and repeatedly across continents that had no contact with each other. The plants never left, only our attention did.